Guys, welcome back to a new episode of the Boundary Riders podcast, episode 111. Of course, so much to talk about today. We're going to be taking a look at Jason Horne-Francis, the situation regarding him, the umpiring and how poor it's been this season. One of the biggest flogs of the week we've had so far, a real contender for flog of the year, the Overreact / Fair Call segment, tips, fantasy review, and everything in between. So let's roll the intro and get straight into the new episode. Welcome to the Boundary Riders podcast, your one-stop shop for all your AFL content needs.
He looks at his options, and Jack Ginnivan says, boys, you brought me to the club to do justice!
But this guy has flog written all over him.
From attack down, Reed sprints away from Petrarca, leaves him in his wake, takes a second bounce, takes a third. The sheer arrogance of Harley Reid. Finish the job, young man!
So let's get into the footy news from the week that was. So guys, welcome, of course, and my brother is here today. Just had to wait an extra couple of seconds so we could pick his boogers and bloody have his drink of his coffee, but he's all set to go now. So he's had a pretty good couple of weeks. Port Adelaide have won their last 3 games in a row.
Yeah, we're dreamland.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nearly territory now where Ken Hinkley keeps his job.
Yeah, Ken Hinkley keeps his job and Port Adelaide win the flag. You know, just couldn't write a better script, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how it goes from here. We'll get to Horne-Francis in a minute. Just got a couple of news topics to cover. So a couple of the suspension stuff that I wanted to take a look at. First of all, with Paul Curtis, he's got 3 matches. Obviously, he will be challenging that. Probably, I think it's tonight that they do the MRO.
Yeah,
so
they're doing that one tonight.
So you guys will know, obviously, being the morning, unless they challenge it, which if he doesn't get off that 3-week ban, I would be challenging it to going to the next step, because it's ridiculous that he's got 3 weeks for that tackle.
Oh, it's shit ass. What is Paul Curtis supposed to do, for God's sake?
Yeah. I mean, it's a tackle, injuries happen, concussions happen. Unfortunately, just Josh Sin just came on the bad end of it.
Yeah.
So that's ridiculous. And I was about to mention Alex Toro. So he's the St Kilda VFL. He's in the VFL at the moment. He was their second draftee. He was picked up just after Travalia. Hasn't got a game in the AFL. Got 4 weeks for a bump, and it wasn't a fucking high bump either.
No,
it was a fucking piss week. I mean, look, I think the guy got concussed. That's why they've given him 4 weeks. But it's ridiculous that a bump that hit him in the chest has given 4 weeks.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think it was also the aftermath of, like, straight after it. The fact is that the way he looked, the player, I don't know who it was, but who got hit, but the way he fell back, and it was kind of like the Rankin way. The fact is that his body was, I don't know, like in a weird position.
What, you think he was out of it?
Yeah, I think he once he hit the floor, he was out.
Yeah,
I think, but I don't believe it was 4 weeks. From what I've seen, where the hit is to his chest. It wasn't to his head.
Yeah, and I think it's just ridiculous that he's been given 4 weeks for that. Now, again, obviously concussion is such a big issue in the game, but that sort of stuff shouldn't be suspendable, in my opinion, because it just takes away from a lot of the theatre of the game if you can't tackle someone. I mean, it's basically taking the point of it as you can't tackle someone because there could be a instance where an injury happens, and that's just unfair.
Well, what I've heard is from another game in the same weekend, in the Hawthorn West Coast game, that when Harley Reid gets the ball, he's running straight into the midfield, and Nick Watson catches him. It's the same act, it's the same process, but the end result's the difference is the fact is that Harley Reid didn't get concussed, Josh Sin did. It's 3 matches to Paul Curtis. It's 0 to Nick Watson. And the funny thing is that Nick Watson gets the free for holding the ball. Paul Curtis he got the free kick in the back, isn't it, or was it play on?
I think it was a free kick against him, which was one of the few free kicks that were paid against North Melbourne on the weekend.
I just think it's funny that I don't. Like, yes, it's one person doing it in Michael Christian. Would it be different if it was one person who was a previous AFL player?
Oh, I just think it shouldn't be him, to be honest with you.
I just don't, yeah.
I mean, he makes so many fucking mistakes, and I mean, I think when you look at it, like, the amount of times that we sit here every single week in the AFL season and thinking, what the fuck was he thinking?
Yeah.
Why has he made that decision? It goes to the tribunal, it gets overturned, or it doesn't get changed, and then we're sitting like with Jackson Archer in round 1. That was ridiculous that he got 3 weeks for that.
Yeah.
That bump, that hit on Cleary, because it was just unfortunate circumstances that happened. We sat here round 1 and we're still sitting here in round 8 dealing with this same sort of bullshit. We've been dealing with it for a very long time now. Every single couple of weeks, we're talking about Michael Christian's made a dumb decision yet again.
We've been dealing with it since he was appointed the role of it.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous, because all he does is look at the imaginary chart that he has and goes like, he got injured, this guy didn't. All right, that guy gets 3 weeks, this guy gets nothing, this guy's play on. It's like, the whole thing needs to be thrown out. He needs to be redone, because we are playing a contact sport. We are playing one of the most brutal games in the world. There's going to be contact to the head. There's going to be concussions. But you're playing a sport that can go either way.
Well, and then you look at it, for example, Mitch Hinge has been offered 1 match for hitting someone in the jaw.
Yeah.
But tackling someone, which is an act in the game, gets 3 weeks, a tackle, but a punch to the jaw gets 1. How does that make any sense?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And also the next one you can also challenge is Noah Bolter got 4 matches for hitting someone in public.
Multiple times.
Intentionally. And Paul Curtis gets 3 matches for a tackle.
Yeah.
And Mitch Hinge gets 1 week for a hit to the head.
Yeah.
So what are we doing here?
Yeah, I think you got to take out the act rather than the un-football acts rather than the football acts that just turn out to unfortunately cause an injury.
Maybe at worst it should have been a week to Paul Curtis because he did get concussed. I would be happy with a week. Yeah. But for 3 weeks for a tackle that's a fair AFL tackle.
Yeah. It's
give
ridiculous.
Me a break.
Yeah. I personally sit on the fact that if it's a football act, like a tackle or something, if you do lock the arms, I do understand why they give a week sometimes. But or when they sling them to ground, I do understand that. I don't think slinging. I think they've done really well in the last couple of years. The AFL players of not slinging people to ground and throwing their heads into the ground. And when it has done, they have, reprimanded those players. But when literal punches into a jaw of someone gets 1 week, but a tackle that was a fair tackle, all things considered, gets 3, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And should we really know Michael Christian's name? We shouldn't know how infamous he is in this fucking game.
Yeah.
We know him more than, I think a lot more people would know him compared to Andrew Dillon and Laura Kane. I feel like most people would know Michael Christian's name, a guy who's a leader of a sub department of the AFL compared to the leaders of the AFL.
I would know Michael Christian more than most of the assistant coaches for every team.
Yeah,
and that's saying something. The second in charge of the second in behind the coach. Of all 18 clubs, I don't know them all, but I know Michael Christian every week comes up in something, in some sort of way.
Yeah, and mostly negative.
Yeah,
majority.
To be honest, I don't know when it's positive.
Yeah, I don't think he comes up.
Positive of him getting fired will be the end result, but I don't know if that will ever happen.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe he is a little bit of the fall guy. Maybe the AFL say, look, just give it because we can't afford to get sued. I don't know. Maybe he is a bit of a fall guy, but
the thing is that. Well, we've went past obviously Andrew Dillon taking over and Laura Kane being pretty much second in charge. I think we can go past, why does Michael Christian still need his job? They could appoint someone else for the new regiment that these two brought into the game.
Well, yeah, I mean, the fact is that he's been there since, Gillan McLaughlin was there. He's still there. Yeah. He's the one constant. I guess you could put it as that point. Anyway, so that's really annoying, really frustrating, and I'm getting pretty sick of it at this point. The fact that this happens every single couple of weeks.
It's like on every single, every televised.
Well,
podcast.
Look, I'm going to cut in with some breaking news here. Paul Curtis's ban has been upheld. He will miss the next 3 games.
You're bullshitting. I think that's the most bullshittest claim ever.
Yeah. So Paul Curtis will be missing at the moment, unless they go and challenge it to further higher ups, then he will miss the next 3 games. So it's not just Michael Christian. We take it all back at this point. The tribunal as well.
Tribunal, there's a joke.
Yeah.
And
I hate to say things like the game's fucking soft or whatever, because I think a lot of the stuff is still quite... The game I still think is quite a, combat, complex, tough sport. But then when they make these sort of decisions, it just gets fucking... It just gives these people a reason to say those sort of statements,
Yeah.
It gives them more warrant to it.
Yeah, and Paul Curtis is the second best forward at North Melbourne at the moment. And in some ways, you could classify him as the best one.
Yeah, he'd arguably the best one, really. I mean, if you look at it, this season anyway.
And he was in All-Australian form. He could still get there. I don't think he's going to miss enough games for that to happen. So he could still do that, but he is in ripping form. Yeah. And for a footy act to derail his season for 3 weeks when no one believes he deserves it is saying something.
Yeah. So, I mean... We'll get to your tips a little bit later, but I'm sure if you guys already saw the video on the main channel, you're going to change your tip now to Essendon.
I was actually considering it once you said that. I think that, it will be interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised if North Melbourne immediately go and take this to the next level.
If I'm them, I would be, and I think a lot of people would be saying that.
Yeah. I just think that's shit. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about the umpiring. So, over the weekend, what a fucking beautiful, great umpiring, I thought, in the end.
They're getting really good at their job.
Yeah, so Kane Cornes was like the big talking point over the week about the umpiring, basically saying the 4 umpires isn't working, that North Melbourne got 6 of their, I think it was 13 goals out of free kicks or 50-metre penalties. A lot of them weren't warranted. Which, I mean, I think a lot of AFL fans have been saying for a while that they are starting to... They're influencing games, influencing results, to say the least.
And, like everyone can say, like Carlton lost, we'll blame the umpires. Now everyone's starting to see that it's not just that team, or you can't just blame it on the umpires. It's that the umpires are actually influencing a game now with the amount of calls that they're making.
Yeah, and it's not even the amount of calls they're making. I mean, I think that when there's 50-plus free kicks, that's way too many. But it's the free kicks where they're calling it, and it's just getting to a point now. Like, I mean, we saw, what was it, a couple of rounds ago, it would have been a month ago or so, when Collingwood played the Dogs. Collingwood got 33 free kicks, or 32. Dogs got 14. And that influenced the result. Yeah. You can butter it up all you like. You can serve it to me different. That changed the result. Yeah. Dogs could have won that game. North Melbourne last week, 6 goals came from 50-metre penalties / free kicks. And granted, some of them were there. But... It seems very tough when they do that sort of stuff, and North Melbourne could have won that game, and there were a lot of other free kicks around the ground that were paid that weren't there, and the Swans game against the Gold Coast. I know we're just mentioning my teams, and again, look, I'll put this preface this now. I don't think Sydney would have won that game. They played terrible in the second half, but a player like Jed Walter was out there, kicked 3 goals, 1 in the end. All of his scores were off free kicks. I said this to you 3 or 4 times during the game. He's got all his score from free kicks. Yeah. It is ridiculous that a player has scored 3 goals, 1 off of free kicks. 2 of them were fucking very contentious. I don't think were there. 2 of them were probably there. But a player should not be getting 3 goals, 1 from free kicks. And I think a lot of people have mentioned that the scoring this year has been quite upped. Like, the scoring has been a lot better, or a lot higher. I think a lot of it has to do with the umpiring, giving that they're looking for ticky-touch decisions inside the forward 50 to pay. And the 15-metre rule being in the defensive 50 or defensive half, most of the time being not paid. It's like, if it's 15 metres, it's 15 metres. Just pay it. Don't fucking think, the game's a bit dull, or... It feels like that's what they're doing. If this game's a bit dull, or they've gone babackwards too many times, we're not going to pay this one. It's like, it's 15 metres, it's 15 metres. Like, you don't need to think in your head, it's like, this is... and change the result of what it is. 15's 15, and it always will be. Oh, it has always will be. It's the same fucking in the back 50 compared to the forward 50. And there's no rule change at the moment that suggests otherwise. Yeah. If you want to make a rule like that, then whatever. Don't do it now. Do it at the end of the season if you want to make that rule.
And make it 20 metres if you really wanted to.
Yeah. Make any rule change like that you want, but don't do it. Don't fucking make this sort of bullshit. Like, don't pay we're not going to pay 15 when it's 20 metres half the time. They're calling it before. Sometimes as a player is kicking, they're going, play on, that's not 15. When the ball is going to travel 30, it's It's
funny, like when you hear it in the mics of the umpires, and one of them says, pay it. It's like, I think if four people can't see that that's 15, don't be an umpire at the highest level in AFL.
Yeah.
If you can't tell what 15 is.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous at this point with the 15 metres, and just the umpiring as a whole this season needs to be seriously looked at. Maybe they need to be full-time, but then you can make the argument to say, if you're not doing a good job, then why do you deserve to be full-time? But look, I mean, if I had a job of like umpiring the biggest sport in the country, I feel like you should probably be full-time, but do you warrant it? I don't know.
I truly believe that whoever is in charge of this, it should be Andrew Dillon, and say, we want them full-time. They are, in a way, the biggest contributor to the AFL. Because if you don't have the umpires, they do, at the end of the day, they umpire the game. But at the moment, because they're not full-time, they don't get the skills, knowledge, and...
Like, some of them are, like, doing 400 games in their career.
Yeah.
Like, some of the big ones.
500 as well.
Yeah, 500 games in their career, but they don't even full-time.
Yeah, it's like...
So they should be. And, I mean, again, people make the argument to say, they're not fucking good enough. Well, it's like, well, I mean, if you were doing your job all the time, and you were doing they would have some of them, you would assume would have second jobs if they're not doing it full-time.
Yeah.
So they don't have the... I mean, you got to expect that the umpires are getting tired when they're running around the ground. That's when they make the mistakes. Like, players make mistakes, so that's when the umpires do. I don't really like. The thing is, the singular umpires are the ones that get the blame, but it's the higher ups that should be the ones that receive it more. Like the Stephen McBurney, I think that's his name. See, I mean, I don't even know his fucking name. He's the one who should be receiving a lot of the brunt of the issue.
I think we should be hearing from him more than we hear from Michael Christian.
Yeah, I think I should know his name a little bit more than him. But
I think that, it's just... Give him a base rate of, 75,000? 80,000?
No, seems a bit
much.
But
give him a base rate of whatever a rookie contract is for an AFL player. I think that's fair enough.
I think they're about... But I think they... If you get things like travel included and stuff like that and all that sort of stuff, I mean, the players get it. Why don't the umpires? They've got to do one game a week, sometimes even two.
Exactly. So they should, in my opinion, be full-time because it is our national sport.
Yeah, I agree. I think they should be full-time as well. But end of the day, they're not doing a fucking good job at the moment. But anyway, I feel like we talk about this all the time, though, don't we? We always, every single fucking year, we're like, the umpires fucking suck.
Umpires suck. Michael Christian's an idiot.
But nothing changes.
And the supporter is the one who
has to sit there and deal with it. Yeah. All right, let's talk about Jason Horne-Francis because, oh God, what a weekend it's been. So, of course, started on the weekend when he's playing his old side in North Melbourne. There's a couple of issues throughout the game when he was going up against a lot of the North Melbourne players, a lot of argy-bargy, a lot of talk back, a lot of, pushing and shoving. He gave away a 50-minute penalty. His butt buddy, essentially, Kane Corns, came out on the weekend. It was like, don't pick on him. And everyone and David King on his old team, so he's really unbiased, is like, he should grow up. So we've got both great sides of it. I mean, you could ask the most biased people on either side to fucking have the argument of this story. So we thought we'd come to another biased party in you as a Port Adelaide supporter. Do you think that Jason Horne-Francis needs to pull his head in, or do you think that he has every right to do what he did, that he's a winner?
I think that he needed to control his anger. He's a great player, as we've seen in the last month of football.
Yeah.
How good he can be. We saw the worst of it at the start of the season, when he's in a form slump.
Yeah.
And I think we saw the worst of that last week against North Melbourne. That when he is in his head, he doesn't really think of team first. It gets to his head, and then he loses the plot, and he gives away a 50, and we're wondering, why is this player not reaching the levels of a Nick Dacos in the same draft? That's what, someone like Nick Dacos will probably win the Brownlow this year. If not this year, he'll win multiple.
I heard that Patrick Cripps has polled 24 votes so far in the first 7 rounds. So
yeah,
I feel like he's pretty close. But I mean, I feel like Nick Dacos could get, they'll be competing around that point.
Yeah.
But I understand where you're coming from. I feel like this is the biggest serving of fucking media bullshit, or whatever you want to say. I feel like the media are just pushing this absolute fucking bullshit story to find something this week. I think there is absolutely nothing to say. I'm probably on the side of this is ridiculous. That this is even a story. I think that Jason Horne-Francis can be a bit of an angry player at times, and I think sometimes when he finds that level that he has in before the North Melbourne game, that's when he's at his best. When he's got that anger for the football, when he is, playing as that bullish player, that's the best he is.
Yeah.
When he hits that, if you look at a temperature gauge, you want him in that, middle period. If he's too cool, he's not going to do anything. If he's too hot, he's going to be fucking giving away free kicks and 50-metre penalties. He was really cold in round 1 against Collingwood. You didn't really notice him. Then in round 2 against Richmond, he was way too hot. And then he kind of came into his season. He's kind of been at that middle point. And he was kind of in that point for a lot of the game against North Melbourne. He was pretty good. But then he did have those kind of points when he was like pushing a boiling point, where it's like he's getting too hot here, too hot-headed. And I think Ken Hinkley kind of brought him back, which I thought was good. I lean on the side of the Kane Corns point that he was just having a conversation and Jason Horne-Francis thought it was over. That's why he walked away. I don't think he was walking away and it's a droppable offence. I don't think that's what happened.
I think people who think that are idiots.
Yeah.
That was a droppable offence. Come on.
I don't know why Matthew Lloyd's trying to be the new Kane Corns or something on Channel 9. It feels like they said, all right, we've lost Kane. Matthew, you have to do that now.
Yeah, it's like, it was... they had the leadership group there. They had the two the vice and captain there. And the coach trying to calm him down. He thought it was over. If it wasn't okay, well,
it's a droppable offence that he didn't even walk away. He went one step, and we're like, oh, that's a droppable offence. It's like, come on,
get a grip. And it's, in a way, at the moment, it's sort of like how Harley Reid is going at the moment as well. In a way, in that moment, that's what Jason Horne-Francis did, and he went over the top. He knew, and Ken Hinkley brought him back down to earth in a way. Harley Reid's at that point at the moment. He's still probably a bit too hot, but he's having those moments that you can see why he is that player, the number 1 pick, and that's why I think Jason Horne-Francis maybe went a bit too far last week in that game. But this week against the Bulldogs, you might see him at his best.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, if he is at his best as well, we've seen already in his career that he has been able to drag his team over the line, Port Adelaide, in games. I still remember, I think it was his first game for Port Adelaide against the Sydney Swans. We were dominating for a lot of the game. And in the second half, he went forward and took the game from Sydney. I remember that. And he's done it already multiple times in a career that hasn't even hit 50 games, I don't think. Yeah. Or it will be just around 50 games. So... yeah, overall, I think it's a huge overreaction and huge bloody bullshit sandwich, I would say. But I do think there is a period where he does go a bit too hot. But some of the best players play very well when they're at that point. Yeah. So I think that overall, I'd like him in my team. I think most people would, and I think North Melbourne would as well.
I think that's also a thing. The fact is that, that North Melbourne knew that if they could get him past that point of angry, we might be able to turn the result. North Melbourne could have won that game.
Yeah.
So North Melbourne knew that. So you can probably give a bit of kudos to them. But they couldn't take their opportunities from the extra 4 players they had on the field and the umpires.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, we're all done with that. Jason Horne-Francis is the best. Yeah, well, I would drop him at this point.
He's dropped. He'll never be a captain or a vice captain. What's the point?
Yeah, I mean, he's so fucking useless. Droppable offence, I think. So let's move to our segment that we have on the channel for the podcast. one of the favourites. I think it's a good one. I've really liked it since it came. Overreact / fair enough. So basically going through statements we've heard in the media over the week or stuff that, we could talk about. That's a little bit of a story that we like to talk. So first question for Overreact / fair enough. The Sydney Swans should pick a new captain in 2026.
I think it's an overreaction. I think to change something like that when Callum Mills is still really, he's in his prime. He's just about, but he just hasn't had a good run at it with injuries. I think it's an overreaction, but I could understand if Dean Cox at the end of the season says, Mills, I think you just take the captaincy off you, take the leadership off you, we'll keep you in the leadership group, but I want to give it to Isaac Heaney, I want to give it to an Eric Gordon to take this team forward. But I think it's an overreaction to say he's done, don't give him the captaincy, he's useless, he's got no attributes as a leader. It's like, he hasn't really had a chance to show us.
Overall, I think it is a huge overreaction because I think that 2 or 3 years ago, before he had these injury woes, now he did have a little early on in his career when he first started, but then there was a good 4 or 5 year period where he was consistent in the Sydney Swans lineup. And the major fact was he was our next captain. He was, all in all, the Swans' next captain. When Luke Parker was there and Dane Rampey was captain, most Swans fans sat there thinking, Cal Mills is our next captain.
Yeah.
So now that he's got the role, unfortunately, injury hasn't helped. He wasn't very good at the end of last year when he came back. Injury was still hampering him. I think that was a pretty obvious point. But this year, we thought he was going to be back. Sydney fans around were thinking this guy's going to be back in that midfield role where he started a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And then he hasn't had a good run at the moment. And the Swans are in shit form, being honest. To say now, this was Kane Corns who said that. So we were on his dick a minute ago. Now we're off him. Well, I am anyway. Cal Mills is the Swans captain. Now, maybe Sydney should go back to a co-captaincy role that they have done in the past and seem to be the only team that can do it well. Maybe Isaac Heaney should join him next year. Maybe you bring up a decent point that maybe Dean Cox should say, look, focus on your footy for a couple of years. Maybe we can consider bringing you back as a co-captain in the future. Stay in the leadership group because you're such a great leader of this team. But right now, you need to focus on your footy. You need to focus on your health and your body because we need you to be at your best next year, 2026. I'm not on the camp just yet that Sydney should write off their season. However, I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world. They haven't had a great start to this year. We've seen teams off of really bad grand final losses do poor the next year. Maybe just use this as a write-off. Try and find some players through the VFL if we've got any. Just play them a little bit more, which we've already kind of had to anyway. But on Cal Mills, I think it's a massive overreaction to just say, nah, get rid of him. He's done.
Yeah.
He's a shit captain. He's not Sydney's captain. It's Isaac Heaney's team. I honestly think that Cal Mills is the captain of the Swans. Isaac Heaney, maybe put him as a vice. James Rowbottom as well, I think is a real leader in that team. And yeah, overall, I think it's a massive overreaction. Next one. This is to do with Tom Barrass. Now, you said this should have been a flog of the week, but we've brought it to this segment because I've got a better flog of the week, I believe, anyway. It was disrespectful of Hawthorn to send Barrass up forward in the final term.
I think that's a fair call. I think he's only kicked one goal in his bloody career. I don't. But he's not a forward. I don't know why he did it, but part of me thinks that someone said that he did it just as a thing to put him on Oscar Allen and be like, yeah, see, come to our club, throw a little bit of a...
Yeah, it was like a little pre-game. It was like a pre-match meeting.
Yeah.
They just thought, like, Sam Mitchell can't be with you right
exactly,
now.
Yeah, Sam Mitchell can't do it. He's already done it. Let's put Chuck Barrass to him and see what happens. But
yeah, I think they were hoping for that matchup down the other end,
Yeah.
but it didn't happen because they played Oscar Allen's
so
defense, was just stupid.
I think, that was also stupid. And I don't know why McQualter did it, but yes, it was disrespectful, but I kind of like the play that, well, our first matchup didn't work. We'll go to plan B. All right, we'll chuck Barrass forward.
Yeah. Now, personally, I think it's a little bit disrespectful. I think it's a pretty fair call to say it was a bit disrespectful. However, I will make one point. I think it's about even on the disrespect gauge when you give a player a verbal agreement to sign to your club on a pretty decent deal, and then the next year take that deal away or lowball him to make him then leave the club.
Yeah.
So overall, I think West Coast are pretty disrespectful to do that to Tom Barrass when that kept him away from fucking Sydney too, the dogs. We said that basically gave him a verbal agreement to say, yeah, we're going to keep you on a decent deal.
Then,
Just stay one more year. We have to get the, dot the I's and cross the T's. And then basically the next year they're like, yeah, no, we're going to offer you like 200K. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, well, go fuck yourself. I'm leaving. So a little bit disrespectful on both ends. I think Hawthorn were like, maybe Tom Barrass went to Sam Mitchell and said, hey, these cunts fucking lowballed me in an offer. Can you just send me forward for the next quarter?
Yeah.
Just show them how much they'd miss me. I think that's what he did. Tom Barrass was like, look, can you just get me a goal here? I've only got one in my career. It was with those fucking drop kicks. You see them over there? They're all fucking huffing fucking fumes and fucking trying to still get Harley Reid to keep on playing with us. When we already know he's going to be at Hawthorn next year. And Oscar Allen, look, I can go talk to Oscar for you. That's what I think happened.
Well, it would have been funny if, because he didn't kick a goal in that game, it would have been funny if Barrass did kick a goal.
It would have been.
And done a celebration. That would have been probably the top, the most highlighted, the best highlight of the game.
Yeah, because the game was fucking dreadful
it was,
too. It was a fucking bore of a watch. Okay, to the final question. The AFL need to bring in a red card.
No, that's an overreaction.
So, of course, a couple of weeks ago, we saw the hit on... Who was it? There was a hit like a couple of weeks ago. Connor Nash. The Connor Nash hit, a lot of people were talking about that they should bring in a red card because Brian Myers was knocked out and obviously Connor Nash got to keep on playing. You think it's an overreaction to bring in a red card, though?
Yes, I think it's a total overreaction. I think we go through this every single bloody year that one person does a stupid hit, it costs 4 plus weeks, and we're like, oh, it's red card. It's like, why? It's that, yes, it's not fair, but
life isn't fair.
Yeah, well, if you think one player going down is the reason your team lost, okay, then your team's not that good then.
And to be honest, Geelong still won that game.
and Geelong won that game anyway. And I think they need to look at the umpiring. They give them more responsibility in giving them a chance to give someone a red card.
Yeah, because we know how this is going to go. They give them more responsibility, like making a player get ejected from the game, and they're going to go fuck it up.
It's a bit different, obviously, in an NFL game, in a soccer game, in basketball. That in basketball, there's not a lot. There's only 10 players on the field.
And a lot of the time in basketball, you have to do an accumulation of fouls to get ejected as well. Yeah. It's not like in the essentially they're saying here, if you do one really stupid act, we're going to give you a red card, which is like they're going to have to review it. Yeah, they're going to and then. Or they're not going to review it. They're going to fucking make him make a split decision off of one thing. Are they going to make him review it?
And then, there's so many processes, so many things that could happen that an umpire can't even comprehend now.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do we see a fucking player get taken high or pushed in the back and the umpire says, nah, play on? Or a player just drops the ball dead on the fucking ground in a holding the ball decision. Yeah. And we're like, oh no, I got knocked out in the tackle. And like 4 of them are standing there, haven't seen that. We on the camera of the TV can see the guy fucking threw the ball onto the fucking ground. I'm sorry. If you make up the excuse of, oh, sorry, they didn't see it. I said, bro, there are 4 of you out there. If you need boundary umpires to hold a fucking whistle, by all means.
Do it.
For someone should see it. If the TV camera has got a fucking bullseye view on the fucking game, surely 1, 2, 3, 4 of you should be keeping a diamond formation. Maybe that's why they need to be full time, so then they can get their formations right around the fucking ball. Anyway, red card overreaction. Very cool.
100%.
Yeah. Overreaction, not fair call. Okay, so let's move into the preview to round 8. So big week coming up, of course. Couple of real 50-50 games. Couple of games that we think are going to be a bit of walkthroughs, but the Sydney Smash and the Q Clash, I think that's how they should name it from now on. Make them come in like that. But anyway, 2 big games on Sunday as well. I didn't really talk about the Swans in the preview to round 8 in the game itself, but I've kind of changed my tune. I'm kind of on the positive approach. Okay, we've won the last couple of Sydney Smashes, or what do they call it? The Battle of the Bridge.
Yeah.
Fucking ugh. I like the Sydney Smash. I know they call it that in the fucking
the
BBL,
BBL, yeah.
but the BBL's in summer. All right, this is the winter Sydney Smash. All right, and I'm gonna go a little bit more of a positive approach because the last few weeks I've gone on the negative. I haven't tipped them this week, but I'm going to be looking at it. Sydney have won the last couple of Sydney Smashes. All right, I'm going to keep on calling it that until it comes a thing. We look good for a half. Both teams had a good first half last week, and both teams had a bad second half. So the only way is, actually, you know what? I think Sydney had a good 2 quarters. GWS only had 1. You know what that means? We're 1 better quarter than the Giants.
Yeah,
okay?
just keep looking at the positives.
Exactly. We're looking at the positives here. The Giants, if we can triple team Jesse Hogan, they got no hope. All right, and then
Well, yeah, just let them kick it to Stringer all day.
yeah, exactly, because if he gets it, he's just gonna kick it on the full anyway. So who gives a fuck? All right.
My biggest regret that should be.
Yeah, I mean, right now that deal's not looking very good, is it?
I think Essendon thing like they're cheering, but then they're like, oh wait, where are we on the ladder?
Yeah. And then another thing as well is Sydney are due. They're due. All right. Giants have been in a bit of a hole. They're not due. Sydney are due. All right. And I don't know if I've got anyone coming back this week, the Swans, but they don't need them. All right.
Yeah.
That's my positive thought on the Swans. But look, let's get rid of the positivity. I do get into a little bit of a rant through the preview about the Swans, so you guys can sit there and laugh at me after I've just made that point. But anyway, let's get into the preview to round 8. So we'll cover a couple of the massive games coming up in round 8, and then we'll get to our full tips as we usually do. So the first game I want to take a little bit more of an in-depth look at is the Bombers up against North Melbourne on Thursday night. A really intriguing contest in my opinion. Both teams down the bottom end of the ladder towards this point in the season. However, Essendon have been a lot better in the past month or so, while North Melbourne have been a bit of a roller coaster, to say the least. A couple of weeks ago against Carlton were absolutely smashed, but last week against Port Adelaide they were actually quite good. I think there's a couple of question marks going into this game, and I think it heavily depends on which of the teams show up. If both of the teams show up, then we're in for one hell of a contest. However, if it goes one way, then I think this could be a massacre. Now, North Melbourne were better last week against Port Adelaide, like I mentioned, but nearly half of their goals were scored from umpire interference or umpire involvement, while Essendon looked disinterested in the first quarter against Collingwood on Anzac Day. But after that point, they actually gave a real effort, and especially with their pressure around the ball, it was absolutely immense in my opinion. Now, the reason why I'm going to be picking Essendon in this game is because I think if both teams bring their best, I think Essendon would come out on top. And in the last month or so, I've seen a lot more consistency from the Bombers rather than North Melbourne. So that's really where I'm looking at here. And I do think that North Melbourne's defence is quite shaky. And surprisingly, I don't think I would have been saying this at the start of the year, but I actually trust the Essendon forward line a little bit more than North Melbourne's at the moment. And the North Melbourne midfield need to seriously lift, because I think they've got one of the best midfields in the competition, but they're getting beaten by lesser sides. And I think if Essendon win in the midfield, I think they'll win this game. However, my brother has gone and picked North Melbourne for this contest, and he's basically gone in blind faith. He says that he doesn't really have much hope in either of these teams winning. He says it's a real 50-50 game, but he's basically just looking at the form from last week that North Melbourne put up a little bit more of a fight than the Bombers. Now, on to the next game I want to take a look at is Saturday afternoon, Adelaide up against Carlton. This is a massive game for both teams. Carlton coming off some great form, 3 wins in a row. Adelaide probably coming off their worst performance of the year. Now, on this game itself, it is at Adelaide, and Carlton have a very poor record at Adelaide Oval against SA teams. They've won their last couple of games at Adelaide Oval through gather round against Fremantle and West Coast. However, other than that, they find it very difficult to win Adelaide Oval. I think they've only won 1 game against an SA team since Adelaide Oval came to the AFL. So that's an interesting watch for Carlton. Riley Thilthorpe does have a hurt hand. From my understanding, he is going to play through it. However, will it hamper him, especially if he has to play through the ruck and having to take strong contested marks? I don't know how much that's going to hamper him, so we just have to wait and see on that front. And on Carlton, they did have the number 3 and number 4 ranked defenders in the league, But with the recent news that Silvani will be out through injury, that does change things a little bit for Carlton. The matchups are going to be really important at either ends of the ground. And I think this game will be decided predominantly at stoppage. If Carlton can win the midfield battle, then I think they have a real chance of winning this game. However, if the Crows midfielders can just even it up at the very least, or if they win it, I think the Crows will run this game through the ground later parts of the game. I think the Crows can even it up in the midfield. The Cats were very poor last week, hence why I think Carlton got away with a lot of stuff in that first half. They were very mature to hold on to the lead. However, at Adelaide Oval, a cauldron of the Adelaide Oval, they struggle in Adelaide against South Australian teams. I really can't see Carlton getting it done. And with the recent injury to Jack Silvani, I don't think they can contain the Adelaide Crows forward. So I'm going with Adelaide, and my brother's going with the Crows as well. Next up, probably the game of the round coming into it is Collingwood up against Geelong at the MCG Saturday night. The Pies' defence has been brilliant so far this season, probably the best in the competition, and the Cats have been a little bit up and down. They had a really good performance against Fremantle in round one, then got beaten by St Kilda. We saw over the last couple of weeks, and they beat the Crows in Gather Round, and then a couple of weeks later they lose to Carlton at the MCG. You really expect them to win that game. So historically, slow starters, Geelong, in start to the season. However, I don't know, it's just a bit of a wait and see on the Cats if they can get their season up and going. Geelong were extremely poor in the first half last week, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, and they were smashed through the first three quarters in the midfield. Now, one thing the Cats need to do if they're going to cause a upset in this game is they have to bring immense pressure. The one thing that they could hang their hat on from last week's Essendon's performance is the fact that in the second and third quarter, when Essendon made their charge, their pressure on the Collingwood possession was immense, and it showed that the Collingwood Football Club are human. They can make turnovers, they made mistakes, and Essendon got back into the game. And with Geelong with a lot more quality than the Bombers, if they can bring that pressure for 3 or 4 quarters, I think they can win this game. The problem is, can Geelong really do that? They've not really been known as a massive pressure side, and players like Stengel, for example, hasn't really had a good start to the year. Close has been pretty good. Myers was out last week, so hopefully they can bring him back in this week as well. And it does seem that Tom Stewart may be a bit of an iffy one, depending on if he's going to be in or out. We'll have to wait and see on that. But on Collingwood's point of view, it's hard to tip against them right now. They are the best team in the competition as of round 8. They're top of the ladder. Darcy Moore should be back this week, who's been in great form so far in 2025. And really, that's where I'm going to sit. Collingwood look unbeatable at the moment. Even when they were heavily challenged last week against the Bombers, they stood up. They looked brilliant. Nick Dacos is in Brownlow form. Still Sidebottom is arguably in Brownlow form as well. Pendlebury's playing well. Their forwards look good. Their defence is extremely solid. They've got a great ruckman. And, I mean, I don't think you can pick against Collingwood at this stage. I think at the MCG, this is Collingwood written to be still on top of the ladder at the end of the round. And my brother's gone the same. But to the final game I want to quickly highlight, and probably the most anticipated Q clash in the history of the AFL, Brisbane up against the Gold Coast Suns. The last game of round 8. What a game this will be. Both of them are in the top 4. Both teams have only had one game lost so far. So the Gold Coast, I think, would be a little bit concerned by their first half performance against Sydney last week, while Brisbane probably would have been a little bit disappointed by the way they finished the game. But overall, I think it was the most complete performance we've seen from the Lions so far this year. I'm going to go straight into the tip here because my brother's tipped differently. I'm going to be going Brisbane. I'm going to be picking Brisbane for a couple of reasons. The main one being the fact that the Gold Coast have been a little bit off the last few weeks. They were very poor against Richmond. They were too busy thinking about the body and thinking about fighting more than playing the game. And against Sydney in that first half, they weren't really good at all. I don't think they were really into that game until, the last 5 minutes of that second term when they got a couple of goals and then they got on their run of 12 goals in a row. I don't think they can rely on that. And the one thing I will say is I think Sydney, 95% of the Gold Coast winning that game was how poor Sydney played in the second half. And I know that takes a little bit away from the Gold Coast win, but I think the majority of the teams in the competition would have walked over Sydney in that second half because they just looked all out of it. They looked disinterested, and I know I'm just ragging on Sydney here, but I'm a Sydney Swan supporter and I was incredibly disappointed. I'm sorry. So I want to see a little bit more from the Gold Coast, and if they can win this game, then I'll be giving them a lot more praise, and I'll take back the words that I said about anyone could have beaten them. And another reason why I'm picking the Lions is because last week, I think I saw something a little bit different from them. The first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, when they were sitting on top of the ladder undefeated, They were using basically bursts of greatness to win games. But last week against St Kilda, it was the most complete performance, like I mentioned, and I think that that's the best I've seen Brisbane so far this year. So they used that loss against Collingwood as like a wake-up call, and I think they're ready to go now. I think that really propelled them into their season, and I think that the Lions are going to go with it. And the fact that it is at the Gabba as well, I think that just does enough for the Lions to win this one. However, my brother has picked the Gold Coast Suns. So he has said that the Gold Coast have a great opportunity to win one of only a few Q clashes here. With their midfield and forward line in full force, they can really test the Brisbane Lions on the counter. Now, he's also mentioned the fact that they need to win this game to show that they're actually a real finals contender, and I tend to agree. I don't think you can count the Gold Coast as a real finals contender just yet. So this is their first real big test, and if they can win that, then I can see them being right up there at the end of the season. So let's get into our tips. So for round 8, my tips are Essendon to beat North Melbourne, Fremantle to beat St Kilda, the Dogs to beat Port Adelaide, Adelaide to beat Carlton, Melbourne to beat the West Coast Eagles, Collingwood to beat Geelong, the Giants to beat Sydney, Hawthorn to beat the Tigers, and Brisbane to beat the Gold Coast Suns. And my brother's tips for round 8 are North Melbourne to beat Essendon, Fremantle to beat St Kilda, the Dogs to beat Port Adelaide, Adelaide to beat Carlton, Melbourne to beat West Coast, Collingwood to beat Geelong, GWS to beat Sydney, Hawthorn to beat the Tigers, and the Gold Coast to beat the Lions. So let's get to me and my brother's certainty picks for this week. My brother has put the certainty on the Crows to beat Carlton. Of course, the Crows losing to Fremantle last week. And my certainty tip is the Giants to beat Sydney. Of course, the Giants losing to the Western Bulldogs last week. Now, I know I've been ragging on Sydney a lot in this video already and they haven't really been mentioned, but I was really disappointed by their performance last week. I would like to think that they would respond, but I think it's a little bit of personnel. But I think a lot of it is really being confused about what Dean Cox wants them to do, and maybe that would just take time. I think, honestly, in the future of Sydney is great, but I think Dean Cox has got to find his identity with Sydney. And I say that because I think the best coaches and the best teams have an identity, and I don't think the Swans have that at the moment since John Longmire's left. So I think that is something that the Swans have to look at. But that's enough of the Swans for this preview to round 8. I'm sure you guys are sick of it. So finally, let's get to the channel's tipping ladder. So of course we have one for the channel, a tipping competition. If you didn't join it, you're too late. You can't win. I'm sorry. But looking at it, we had about 30 of you guys join up, and right now, the boy from SNB currently leads, did use his joker this week, so he had 6 tips, up to 12, of course, being doubled. He is up the top by 2 tips on Leviticus, who is on 46. The boy from SNB is at 48, so good on him. But Leviticus, I have to mention him, really good job. He's been really good when he gets a lot of tips. He got 8 out of 9 last week, picked the margin for the Melbourne v Richmond game, and I'm unsure if he's used his joker. If he has, he's doing okay. If he hasn't, I think the guy's got it locked up as a win already. Now, Ethan Sports was on top for the last couple of weeks. Unfortunately, didn't have a great week this week. Only got the 5 and has dropped down to 5th spot. So not the greatest, but I'm sure he'll be fine. He'll be happy that he beat the Swans because he's a Gold Coast supporter. So good on him. Hopefully he's not commenting on this video saying how much the Gold Coast win was, so much better than Sydney. Sydney suck. Hopefully he's not here to say that to me because I'll cry. But anyway, I'm sitting in 10th spot. I did jump up into the top 10 this week with a 7-tip performance. I'm doing pretty good with my tips so far. 42 for the year. Haven't used my joker just yet, so I'm still eyeing off a top place finish. Now, I wanted to quickly remind you guys, because I haven't said it the last couple of weeks, but the winner, of course, of the tipping comp will be winning a $100 gift voucher to the AFL store. So just remember that, and we'll mention that at the end of the year when the tipping comp inevitably ends. But that's pretty much all we've got for this episode of the preview, guys, of course, for round 8. Make sure to let me know down below if you think your team is going to win this week. Let me know your tips as well down below in the comments section. Up next, of course, we have my brother's betting segment, Bros Bets. So we've got a couple of massive ones coming up. I think this one's like if you win, which are pretty easy, you win like 100K, I'm assuming. So, guys, listen up, of course. This is going to be a massive bet coming up. But obviously, gamble responsibly if you are going to be gambling and all those... I love gambling adverts about all these massive deals and stuff, and then they go gamble responsibly. You could win 100K. Gamble responsibly.
Imagine what you could be losing. It's like
if you put on 10 legs on this multi, if you fail one, we're gonna pay you out. Gamble responsibly.
Yeah.
Anyway. What is your exclusive bet for the podcast this week?
I'm going to look at Friday night with St Kilda v Freo, and I'm going to take Jordan Clark for 20+. I think he actually has a good record. The last 3 games he's against the Saints, he's got 25+. So I'm going to go in the safer bet that he will get 20+.
Okay, cool. So you've got, of course, your Thursday night multi, which you basically go for, and your certainty bet and your outside the boundary bet, basically. Yeah. So that's the exclusive for the pod, guys, of course. Like I said, gamble responsibly. But let's get into Bro's bets for round 8.
Okay, guys, let's get into round 8. As always, we will start with our Thursday night same game multi, Essendon v North Melbourne. First leg is Luke Parker for 20+ disposals. Second leg is Zach Merritt, 25+ disposals. Third leg is Nick Larkey for 2 goals. And the final leg is Peter Wright to kick 2 goals, valued at $3.25. Then we'll get into our certainty bet this week. I'm going to take Josh Dacos for 25+ disposals against the Cats on Saturday night, valued at $1.50. Finally, we'll look at our outside the boundary bet. This week, I'm taking Melbourne to win by 40+ against the Eagles, valued at $3.80. And as always, guys, gamble responsibly.
So now, of course, we get to our AFL Fantasy review for the week. You've dropped down a bit lately. I feel like you're dropping off.
What are you talking about? I'm better than you.
Yeah, I know, but you've been dropping off considerably. You've dropped from the top 4 to 16th, and I'm keeping around that 20 mark, and I'm making my big move, which we'll get to in a minute.
I'm liking the signs though of last week, getting back to the 2,000 mark, 2,100.
Did you see the top score? Someone got 2,400.
I don't know how the hell they got that. And I'm looking at it, it's like I've got that player, I've got that player, I've got that player, I've got that player. How did I get 300? Points less.
Yeah. I know, I looked at it and I was like, but he did get a bit lucky on a lot of them. Like, there were a lot of players that, like, his team just like fell into a perfect line.
Oh yeah, I know. It's like,
and he got the vice captain on Dacos and just, I mean, well done to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, very good job. 2,400 at this stage of the season. I feel like it's a very good job.
Yeah, I think
his overall ranking was like just outside the top 1,000. So he's obviously, I think he's got a bit of a lucky one this week, I would say.
Well, obviously getting like that, obviously going to soar up the rankings.
Yeah, true, exactly. I mean, he may have been in the 5,000s if he didn't get that this week. Because, I mean, like, if you look at our league, like, I think the points between top and, like, 20th are, like, 100 points, or, like, 200 points. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
Well, it feels like it's not a lot anyway. But anyway, let's move on. Let's get into the review for AFL Fantasy of round 7. Course, and I had a pretty decent week, I'd say. I got 2,122. Overall rank from that round was 25,838. So, not the greatest, but look, I'm going to take it. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. Now, looking at my best fantasy scorers, Jake Bowie, absolutely loving his performances in the last couple of weeks since bringing him in. 123 against was Richmond in the end. Matt Roberts got 114, love that. Riley Bice with the 82. Merritt, Dawson, and Rosie all with 100s, along with Will Ashcroft getting back into some form. Max Gawn and Tom De Koning with the 100s as well. I wish I put the vice captaincy on Max Gawn, but I went with Zach Merritt on Friday against Collingwood. And look, he was the only one to get 100 against Collingwood for the Bombers, but I didn't take that score. I did go with Connor Rosie in the end and take his captaincy role, which got a couple of points extra, but yeah, it would have been a lot better if I picked Max Gawn. And on the forwards, Bailey Smith with the 132. Very good AFL fantasy-wise. And McRae and Horne-Francis did pretty well. On the side of not so great, Max Holmes is 65. He's been up and down a lot this year in terms of disposals, so not the greatest. I wish I went with someone like Nasiah Wanganeen-Miller. But Lawler, only 41. Not the greatest from him. May have to look and get rid of Lawler in the next couple of weeks, unfortunately. Riley Sanders and Sam Davidson, 51s after great performances the week prior against St Kilda. They just couldn't get around the footy in the game against the Giants, and unfortunately they both accumulated in scores. Tunstall as well didn't have a very good performance in his game. Unfortunately, he was put as sub, so not the greatest, but I had to bring him in for one of my trades. And a couple of shout-outs on the bench, though. Connor Stone, even though he only got 65, which sounds pretty good for him, he had about 55 to half-time, but I wish still take that 100%. Xavier Lindsay, I was able to get his score into the team in the end with the 98, and Caden Cleary with the 82. So a couple of players still getting up in price for me with some good scores on the reserves list. Now, looking at my brother's team, he was able to get 2,181, so he just beat me in the end. His round rank was 13,238, so not too bad on that front. He had a couple of really good performances in defence. No one under the 80 scoreline, which is very good. good. Nasai Wangan-Miller are top for him with the 131. He had Jaden Short and Jordan Clark. Can't be too concerned about that. He does have a lot of forward mids into his midfield, so interested to see what he's going to be doing about that. And his forward line is probably where he lost a lot of points here. You got Riley Sanders, Levi Ashcroft, and Sam Davidson in there. So a couple of midfielders he's missing out on, but not too bad. He did beat my score, so I can't really have too many complaints about him. He also had Christian Moraes in his team with 49, so probably looking to get rid of him in the next week or two. But Tristan Sherry was his big trade in last week, and he did really well. Best North player on the ground, in my opinion. So 122 from Tristan Sherry, 100% would take that. But let's look at the trades. So my trades for AFL Fantasy this week are Murphy Reed out for Jed Buslinger and Isaac Kako. And the big move, I've had enough cash, I'm going to Nick Dacos. So first of all, the Murphy Reed trade, I kept him in for an extra week. I did announce last week that I did get rid of him. However, because of Xavier Lindsay's score, I decided to quickly reverse that and keep Murphy Reed for a week. It was only on my bench anyway, so I wasn't too concerned about it. And I brought in Jed Buslinger as a defender. Played on debut for the Dogs in the week, and even though he only got 42, I did watch the Giants game, and he looks like he's someone that they can build off of. I don't see him getting dropped in the next couple of weeks at the very least, and I wouldn't be too surprised if they bring back in Liam Jones and keep Buslinger in the team. He does use the ball pretty well. They did seem to like to get the ball into his hands, and I think that if he can hold his spot and potentially they bring back Liam Jones, I wouldn't be surprised if his score goes up maybe an extra 20 per game. So just keep your eye out on Buslinger at this moment. But the big trade, of course, is Kako out for Dacos. So I have been able to get Dacos in with a couple of the midfielders that I have having forward status. One of them, Lawler, I think it was that I used. So Nick Dacos, I could have gone with Zach Butters. I did ever think about that, but I thought, let's just go with the informed player. Nick Dacos, untaggable at the moment. So I think that's a good move on my end. I still have 122k still available. So I'll be looking to get rid of a couple of other players in the week, but that's really what I'm looking at right now because I think now is when I'm trying to get rid of the first batch of rookies out and then get some higher priced players. So my midfield looks almost set at this point for the mid-season. You got Dawson, Merritt, Rosie, Dacos, Oliver, Will Ashcroft as the 6. And then I've got Levi Ashcroft and Xavier Lindsay as my rookies at the moment. But I can definitely rotate them out in the coming weeks. Other than, Bice, Trainer, Ashcroft, Lindsay, and Davidson in my team right now, every other player is a player that I would like to keep going forward, and I still think has a potential to score at least 100. Now, Riley Sanders is probably one that I have to look to get rid of, and Will Ashcroft has been up and down so far this year. Same with sort of Clayton Oliver as well. But other than that, I'm really looking to get rid of the rookies at the minimum first, and then move on to try and get other players to go a little bit higher. Because I think the players that I have got in the team at the moment that are not rookies, I think have a good ceiling. However, Riley Sanders is one I'm a bit iffy on at this stage, especially now with Bontempelli being back. But let's move to my brother's trades for AFL Fantasy this week. He has got rid of Christian Moraes for Ned Long, and he's got rid of Archer Reed for Harry Boyd. Now, he got rid of Archer Reed for Harry Boyd just to get a little bit of cash in, so then he could make that upgrade from Moraes to get Ned Long. Of course, his price is quite low considering he did have the first couple of weeks of the season as the sub. Since that game against Sydney and Gather Round, he's been really important for the Pies. So since then, that's a really good... I think it's a pretty decent trade. I wouldn't be too concerned about that if I'm looking at it on my brother's side. At the moment now, because of that trade that he's made, his midfield really only has one rookie in it, in Xavier Lindsay. Looking at his team, I think his forward line's a little bit shaky. Like, Christian Petrarca still in that forward line doesn't look too bad, I would say. But having the bottom three of his forwards, like F4, F5, and F6, are Sanders, Ashcroft, being Levi, and Sam Davidson. They obviously can score high. All of them have scored 90 plus this year. However, if they're not going to score well, they have very low basement scores. So that may be something he keeps an eye on. But other than that, his team looks pretty decent in my opinion, and probably going well into the bye. His current rank is 3,470, while mine is 7,209. I think it's one of his best years that he's done in AFL Fantasy. I did finish in the top 5,000 a couple of years ago. So hopefully I can do some move on, like get closer as the season goes forward. But finally, before we end the review, we will take a look at our AFL Fantasy League. Of course, you guys have joined in at the start of the season. We had about 80 of you guys join. So the Cheetah Cubs is still on top. He's been able to hold his top spot over the last couple of weeks. He got 2,247 over the weekend. It's a really good performance from him. Lucas Martin, he was our number one guy at the start of the year. He was number one in AFL Fantasy after round one. He was number one, of course, in our league as well. He dropped a couple of spots last week, but he did jump back up into second after his good performance over the weekend with 2,274. And currently, the Cheetah Cubs leads the league by 24 points over Pub Feed with Sauce. So not too bad on that front. My brother has dropped right down the ranks. He was in the top 4 a couple of weeks ago. He's dropped to 16th spot after a couple of poor performances. But I can't be too mad about him because I've dropped a couple of spots this week as well. I've dropped down to 27th position. So still in the top half, but I would like to be in the top 15 by the end of the year at the very least. And just a reminder as well, I haven't mentioned it the last couple of weeks because, you know, it's a bit early on, but when someone does win, unless it's my brother, by the way, we won't be giving away a prize if my brother wins. That's not fair. You got to beat us. But if he does, if one of you guys do win it, you will be getting a $100 gift voucher to the AFL store. Same with the AFL tipping comp as well. But just wanted to quickly remind you guys about that.
And finally, guys, we get to our fan favorite segment. The Flog of the Week is back. And I'm going to tell you, I think this has Flog of the Year written all over it. I think this is a true flog dog act. So, the Flog of the Week nomination for this week's episode of the podcast is Tyson Outtro from news.com.au. His crime of getting this nomination is clickbaiting readers of a player's death. This is one of the most disrespectful things I have fucking seen. So, I saw this on Facebook because I was scrolling through to, you know, find, I don't know, some sort of racial comments or that sort of stuff, just have a little bit of a laugh at and look at these older boomers having a fucking go. And then I scrolled across this post saying, from news.com saying, just in, full story with the link to the article. Now the picture says, AFL cult hero dead at age 67. And you're like, oh, that's pretty sad. The picture has 3 different players that you would arguably call cult heroes. It had Warwick Capper, Mark Johnson, and Peter Busosto. Sorry, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, but Peter Busosto, unfortunately, is the person who passed away. But people who are fans of the Sydney Swans or Brisbane or Geelong, I believe Mark Jackson played for, would have been pretty fucking, you know, pretty down, pretty upset, thinking it was maybe them. But you put 3 players in the fucking picture, clickbaiting people into thinking, who is it? Because that's exactly why I clicked on it. I saw Warwick Capper's face, and I'm like, oh shit, Warwick Capper could have died. I look at it, and it's someone else, which is like I wasn't like happy, obviously, but I'm like, what the fuck is that? I actually looked on the internet to quickly check and typed in cult hero passes away. Channel 7 have put a picture of Peter on the picture, so people can leave their condolences and read about the unfortunate passing of him. But fucking news.com.au, they know exactly what they're doing. They're getting extra clicks from people who are confused about who it is, who have passed away. Peter unfortunately passed away after a long battle with cancer. And then fucking clickbaiting a death. Oh, good on you, bro. I hope your advertisements really fucking love that.
Yeah.
People get fucking angry about some fucking YouTuber putting someone else in the thumbnail, gets his extra 30 cents. But fucking the amount of times that people get clickbaited on fucking articles, especially on things like Facebook and stuff now, and they just get away with it. People forget about this in 3 days.
Yeah.
But it's so fucking consistent now. And then people wonder why people don't trust journalists anymore. Like, I mean, and a lot of... so many fucking conspiracies get fucking flying around now because no one trusts a fucking journalist. And they're like, we've got to keep the top people safe. You know, got to keep them accountable. It's like, no, you don't. You fucking just... fucking making up bullshit articles about the amount of fucking bullshit they write about. Oh, this woke person did this, or this fucking transgender did that, just to fucking get clicks from fucking boomers who don't understand it. They're clickbaiting your fucking ass. Oh, just fucking shits me. This is why this got flog of the week. Now, I don't know if Tyler Outtro, the I don't even want to call him the fucking writer of the article, because the article is just fucking hogwash, really. Like, a lot of it is just stuff that they've copied and pasted from other journalists, basically. It's the same written article, just trying to get fucking clicks off someone's passing, which is like, no, I don't want to fucking hear about it.
Yeah.
And I recently had a person pass away a friend's family member passed away. I didn't actually know this, but they actually these journalists fucking message the family hours after passings, fucking asking for a statement.
Yeah.
It's fucking deplorable, the way you can sleep at night.
Yeah, that's the thing. But it's all about them getting their paycheck, all about them getting their article, getting their...
Yeah, they're on a fucking deadline to get... Oh, sorry, we have a deadline due. It's like, fuck off, you do. And even if you do, who gives a fuck?
Yeah,
Your story's not going to be any better or any worse or any fucking different, depending on if you get a statement from the family. You shouldn't even be fucking... I don't even think you should be getting paid for it, really. I think fucking the advertising money that you get for it is fucking ridiculous anyway. But if you're going to fucking advertise a passing or something like that, the way you do, don't fucking clickbait it.
Yeah.
Just put the picture of the person on there and just say who it is. Devastating passing of a Carlton cult hero. Put the picture there.
Yeah.
Or put the name his name in the fucking headline. Don't write full story, link here, and then in the fucking picture below, it's like your thumbnail, saying cult hero passes away with 3 different players.
Yeah.
You fucking joke. So Tyson Otto, you ranger loser, you got a fucking flog of the week nomination for this week, and right now, you're on par for a fucking flog of the year. I'm telling you. Now, last year it was Mitch Cleary who got it, but this has flog of the century written on it. You absolute twat. And if you think I'm being mean to this guy, good. I hope you fucking feel sad about it. You joke. Anyway, that's pretty much all we've got. I'm actually tingling. I'm a bit fucking angry after all that. You think that was flog of the week worthy?
Yeah.
Yeah, fucking wank stain. Anyway, guys, that's basically what we have for this episode of the Boundary Riders podcast. I'm gonna go have a drink and have a bit of a lie down after that. Feel a bit lightheaded after yelling at some fucking flog. Yeah, fucking idiot. Anyway, hopefully you guys did enjoy this episode of the Boundary Riders podcast. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe over on YouTube. And if you did listen to it over on Spotify, make sure to leave us 5 stars. Make sure to follow so you're notified on the podcast and the review every single week. Maybe get a couple of extra watch seconds on that. But again, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you all next week.
See you later, guys.